Hey everybody, we are here live on Spotlight with Angie Mason.
Ah,
Uh,
stop. Manson. Really?
Manson, sorry. I'm so sorry. That's as bad as when people butcher my last name.
Damn it, Jonathan. I know
I
people
am so
hate that
sorry.
last name. They hate it so much. I get it.
With Elevate,
Yeah.
and Angie, talk a little bit about what you guys do at Elevate because I don't think people realize how bad the drug epidemic is right now.
Yeah. And it's constantly changing. So I run and I own and operate residential drug and alcohol treatment program in Northern California. We have a couple locations, and we also have a remote outpatient as well for those that are unable to check in or who need to leave early and continue services. So we provide all that full continuum of care from detox all the way through aftercare and when they've transitioned back into regular world while still, applying and learning and being connected to our group. So that's basically what we do. But like you highlighted, yeah, the world is not good. And here's an interesting fact, Jonathan, because I was, I pay attention about who's coming in the program, the trends, what's happening. And although things have gotten really bad, like say with fentanyl, they're lacing it in everything, it's extremely dangerous, it's not good. That climate has changed, but the real kicker of what's gotten worse is, so let's say 2019, our demographic was 51%, was everything combined. 49% of the people coming in was for alcohol. In the last 3 years, so since the beginning of, let's say, 2023,
Yep.
that has swung drastically. Now, 69% of the people that are coming in are for alcohol, and only 31% are combined to everything else. So that just kind of gives you an idea. I like to think it's like a pretty fair cross section of what's happening in the United States as to what's really hurting everybody. And it's not necessarily just the fentanyl, it is the alcohol. And that is a huge, I think, byproduct of the pandemic and everybody, sitting at home and drinking and it considered necessary.
Yeah, and that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is a way to get into all the rest of the stuff. Correct?
Oh, for sure, it's a good gateway drug, but it's also just very deadly and toxic in itself. Like we have people so heavily addicted to alcohol, and I'm not talking about your 40-year-old, although there is plenty of them too. But even young kids are drinking so heavily that their bodies are so physically dependent. It is literally life or death. Like it's that bad. That's how toxic they've created their body, and so. And it's one of the more difficult ones to give up because
Yeah.
it's constantly accepted, reminded, it's everywhere, it's
Push.
part of celebrations, it's part of, sadness, whatever. It's just a part of life. So it's very difficult for people who have alcohol as their primary drug to just walk away from it.
Yeah, and I want to highlight that because I have personal experience with that. I had no idea how hard it is and how deadly it can be to detox from alcohol until my dad went through it. I knew my dad was a functioning alcoholic, and he had a heart attack. When he was in the hospital, they actually restrained him and they had to detox him there. It took 2 or 3 weeks where he was restrained.
Yeah.
And they said if he went back to alcohol, he would die.
Yeah, it's literally that bad. Since the beginning of the year, we've probably had 4 to 6 people that were arrived too intoxicated. We couldn't even admit them, and they actually had to be admitted to the hospital and put in and induced comas to detox them because it was such a dangerous amount of alcohol that they were on. And that's become, I don't want to call it a norm, but that is a huge trend that we're seeing right now, which is scary and sad because it's affecting every demographic, every kind of person, people you would not even know that has a problem. This has become like a huge problem.
Yeah. And they are great at hiding it too.
Right. Right.
You know what I
Because it is
mean?
so acceptable. It is so normal that nobody thinks differently when they see it.
100%. And they're going to get that fixed. No, I've dealt, not at your level, but I've obviously dealt with it within my family. And that was enough. It was eye opening where I think I might have drank 5 times this year. And I can tell you when I don't drink at all, and I just, because of 75 hard or whatnot, my life, I function at a much, much higher level.
Yeah. Well, that's
Much,
the beauty of 75 Hard is it's a way of sort of doing a hard reset without it being like, hey, everybody, I'm not drinking right now. Like, I know I will have people come to me for advice, and I kind of steer everybody towards that. In the back of my mind, I might be thinking it'll be really good for you to get a dry out period, but that's a perfect way of doing it because it's a mental toughness program, but it's a great byproduct of it.
Got it. So what would you say are some of the signs that people can look for? And what are some of the tells if there's somebody in your life that needs you to have an intervention or step in?
I would say blowing off family functions, arriving late, leaving early, being distracted, not seeming themselves, glassy eyes, forgetfulness, minimizing things that, seem like a big deal, and they're like, that's not a big deal. And then, obviously, like blowing off responsibilities where they should be doing things and they're not, and they're staying out too late, and they're tired all the time, and they put on weight. Like, weight gain is a huge part of excess drinking. Like, it creates inflammation in the body, and so you can like see them like puffing up literally from their choices with alcohol and food.
Got it. And what about some of the other other drugs? Would you say it's the same symptoms or?
No, totally different. Like, they're all different. It all depends. Like, for fentanyl or opiates, you see them like nodding off, being tired, less involved in life, and it's a physically addictive drug. So if they don't get it, they're going to get extremely sick. So they're going to be throwing up, shaking, it looks like flu-like symptoms. That's somebody who's addicted to opiates and they're not having their opiates. That's what'll happen to them. But then, you could have somebody that's on meth or cocaine or stimulants, and then they're chatty, they're, excited, they're overwhelmed, they're not eating. There's just like it's almost like the opposite physical manifestation. So it all depends on what they're on by what you're looking for.
Understood. And what do you recommend if somebody has that suspicion, right?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much know if they're not ready to give it up, you're going to become the enemy by even just asking about it or hinting about it. It depends on the relationship, because obviously, depending on, is it a mother-daughter situation? Is it a couple situation? Is it a parent-child? It all depends on the relationship, on, how open and honest you are, how deep they're into it, and how receptive they are to getting help or needing help.
Got it. And what made you get into this space, if you don't mind me asking?
So I started off in a single mom household. I was 11 years old. I was a latchkey kid, so I spent a lot of time by myself. Things were a lot different back then than they are now. And so at a very young age, I started drinking, using, smoking. And by a young age, I mean like 11 years old. And so I started pretty young in those developmental years, and it continued throughout my teens. And so by the time I was 21, I was facing 10 years in prison for drug-ish related charges, but it was pretty serious, to the point where, I was about to be put away. And I was fortunate enough to have a judge have some sympathy for my situation as a 21-year-old girl and offer me drug diversion and to find myself a program that I could go to for a year. And so that's what I did. I went to I found a place my best friend had gone to. I ended up staying there. I ended up working there. I ended up going back and forth seeing the judge for the next 3 years. And at the end of it, he completely wiped away the felony, the charges, the restitution, gave me a clean slate on life. And I've been there ever since. So I've been doing this now for 29 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm sure you get to change a lot of lives. Like, everyone wants to make an impact, but the impact that you're making is literally life-saving.
Yeah.
And family-saving.
It is. And you know what? You could be having, for myself, because, everyone's like, oh my gosh, dealing with, addicts, it's got to be so hard. It's like, actually not. That's the easy part. Like, we get it. We understand. We've been there. They're here because they want help. It's all the other stuff that can be really hard, fighting with insurance companies and regulations and all the other, like, boring stuff that goes with like running a business in California. That's the stuff that sucks. But no matter how bad it sucks and how much it changes, you go to one graduation, and we are so fortunate because we have graduations every Friday night. I go to a graduation, you see the restoration of lives, the empowerment of individuals to go take on the world and having felt like they overcame their addiction, and they're thanking you and their parents are thanking you. And it's like, wow, there's literally nothing more important than I should be doing for this planet than what I do. And it's creating that impact. It's amazing.
That's awesome. What have been some of the, I know you hinted at it, but what have been some of the biggest challenges that you faced as an operator?
Yeah, I would say definitely it's healthcare in California. I mean, I know it's not easy anywhere, but California has extra additives. Also, we really struggle with insurance and what insurance is willing to pay as the years have gone on. So like after Obamacare, and it was mandatory for everybody to have insurance.
Yep.
Now insurance cover, and due to that, there was a lot of corruption that occurred in the drug rehab industry. People were buying policies, and rehabs were milking it for everything they could get, and it became very corrupt. So they started putting in lots of laws and rules and regulations to prevent the corruptness, but it affects the good people and the good players. So, for example, you're pleading to get your insurance to cover you for inpatient rehab. You OD'd just last week.
Yep.
They could look at it. If you had like one good day and it's reported in the notes that goes to the insurance company, you have somebody in the insurance company saying, oh, well, they're fixed. They're better. Discharge them to outpatient, give them some medication so that they don't, overdose. And we consider them to be good. So they're dropping levels of care so rapidly to save themselves money because inpatient is expensive, and just medicating people and having them do outpatient is better for them. So that's probably our biggest thing, is fighting and advocating for the clients to be able to do a whole program and have the best foundation for success, against somebody in some office saying, no, they're fine, just release them and put them on meds.
Yeah. What would you say the differences are in success rates with somebody doing outpatient versus inpatient?
I mean, it's night and day. Like, if somebody does our full program, we're looking at like a 70% success rate, which is phenomenal.
That's
Those programs
crazy.
are like 12% at best. Most are really around 2%. But if you never get the opportunity to fully remove yourself from the environment, and you're expected to behave differently, but in the same thing, the chances of success are very, very small, unless the person is facing some massive justice. If they don't abide by it,
Yeah.
it is very, very difficult to stay in that same environment and expect different results. I've just changed as a person.
That makes a lot of sense. What are some of the keys? Because you gave averages. I mean, this is the easiest interview I've ever done, because I don't even have to ask the specifics. You're just going right to it, which I love. Thank you.
Perfect. I don't even need you. I'll just talk. No. I'm kidding.
Yeah, really. Like, I'm just going to sit here.
Perfect.
So what are some of the key differences, right? If you guys are at 67, 68%, and average is 12%, clearly you're doing something right. What are some of those keys, if you don't mind sharing? Because I want to get as many people knowledgeable about this as possible, because this
Yeah.
is something that keeps coming up.
So the first thing I would say we do, and I hinted at this as well, is we take everybody off all medications. So what's passing as normal these days is you come in on fentanyl and alcohol, and we're going to put you on 5 different medications, your Adderall, your, whatever to help you go to sleep at night, your mood stabilizer, and all this. So traditional, what's going on now is people come in on this, and then they leave on 6 different medications, and yet they're called sober. So they really just swap medications. There's no difference, except now they're on legalized medication. So for us, we take everybody off everything before they even leave the detox cabin, which is separated from the rest of the campus. And so people rapidly, they want to go start their program, and they can't even start it till they're off everything. So it's amazing how quickly they're able to get off all the medications when you kind of give them an ultimatum, like you can't even start your program till you're off of it. They're like, actually, I'm fine. If you give it up to them, they're going to drag out the taper the whole program. They're going to do the whole thing medicated. They're only going to make so much difference because they're still cloudy. So we take them off everything. We immediately infuse exercise. Because again, this is not normal for traditional treatment, but for us taking everybody off medication, we got to get those endorphins and everything functioning quickly so that they are able to sleep without the need of medications. So we add exercise in right away, get them starting to feel good about themselves, eating well, eating healthy. We try to eliminate sugar so they're not prolonging detoxes. And then we start deep diving. And a lot of that is handling the trauma. What caused or created your choice to go down this path? And there's always some trauma. That is a commonality that we all have as human beings, but for sure addicts. And so they are able to mindfully, and we do the mindfulness workbook for addiction, see what triggers it, what happened when they started doing this as a solution to whatever was going on in their life. And so we really handle the trauma piece. So they work with a one-on-one counselor and they figure it out for themselves. And then the biggest thing we do, I think, is full accountability and responsibility. So we do not allow the thinking that this is a disease, this was done to me, what can I do? I just have this disease. It's like, no, you have a condition that you created. You actively created that. Therefore, you are going to actively uncreate that and create a new existence. So we don't let them be a victim of their choices. We put them as the fault or the cause, and then that empowers them to overcome it because they realize, hey, I got myself into this. I can get myself out of this. This is not a death sentence or a lifelong disease. It was something I used to do. It's not who I am. And they're fully empowered to go on and have normal lives without this burden of being called an addict the rest of their life.
That's amazing because when I experienced this with the two people in my life, both times it was, oh, it's a disease. It could be hereditary. And now seeing your perspective, which should be everybody's perspective, right?
Yeah.
Accountability.
Yeah.
That's massive. That's so awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's the cure out of everything, right? It's like, what part did I play in creating that? Even bad shit that happens to us. If we can find some little cause point, then it ceases to have effect over us. So we have to view it as, what did I do to create this?
Absolutely. And so how important do you think it is that removing themselves from their old environment, how do you assimilate them back into it, or you try to steer them away from?
Yeah, that's pretty much what we do. I mean, obviously, if they're a parent and they need to go caretake, we've just got to steel them up and prepare them for every possible scenario they could get hit with that is going to be triggering. But if they're able to relocate, we very often will push families into why don't we look at getting them into an SLE and them getting a job and them starting to adult away from their triggering environments, because not only is, going back to the same environment and expecting different results, kind of crazy, but also there can be a very negative connection, like a codependency with that person and someone else in their environment. Even if it's a loved one who wants the best for them, it can create a very unhealthy or toxic relationship. And so we need to teach them how to go be adults on their own because what happens is, it's just natural. If someone's supporting you financially, emotionally, they're going to want something from you in return. It's very rarely just freely given. And so we have to create their independence of creating on their own so that they're not obligated to abide by, maybe some unhealthy things on the other side in order to keep getting things. That's kind of deep. That's not everybody, but it does happen. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
so,
good.
Talk to us about some of your goals over the next, let's say, 1, 3, and 5 years.
Oh my
as
gosh.
An operator.
Yeah, so for sure, I'd love to fill all my beds. As you can imagine, we're licensed for, between our 3 centers, 150 clients. Well, when you have new people coming in and then leaving every 30 days, every 60 days, it's a constant need for new people, because we also didn't build a program where we are banking on them failing so that they come back.
Yeah.
We would rather we never see them again, which is awesome in theory, but at the same time, that means you need a constant influx of new customers in order to keep your beds full because of the constant burn. So for me, I would love to first and foremost, get us at a consistent like 85% full basis. And then at that point, I really want to expand into other sectors. Because the one thing I've learned during the pandemic is our program, so we do outcome studies. We started doing outcome studies as soon as we originated Elevate. We followed them through and we still do them, through their whole program, and then after they leave. And this is done by a third-party company, so we're not like able to fudge the results. It just is what it is. So we do outcome tracking. Well, one thing I realized pretty early on is the majority of people coming in present with depression and anxiety. It's just a norm. If you're an addict, you're depressed and you're anxious about something. It goes hand in hand. However, by the time people are leaving their program, like a very small percentage, I want to say maybe even 2%, are leaving still with depression and anxiety. So in other words, handling their addiction handled these, negative emotions that they were experiencing because they're productive and they've handled their trauma and they're exercising, they're feeling good. Like they don't have depression and anxiety anymore. They've handled the shit. So I would love to get into the field of helping people who maybe don't have drug or alcohol as a problem, but they have, and we see this with the entrepreneurs all the time, depression, anxiety, they have all these negative emotions where it's more just mental health. And I would love to be able to get in that realm and help those kind of people as well, because I know I can apply the same program, the same principles, the same everything, and get the same amazing results on the other side.
I love it. I think that is needed because I think all us entrepreneurs, I don't think anyone that says they have it figured out or their shit's together or they don't have stress is lying.
Yes, 100%. Some are just better at covering it up because, they're like supposed to be the rah-rah person, but it's like, no, you got your shit too. We get it.
Yeah. You have your demons.
Yes, we all do.
Actually, some skeletons in that closet.
Absolutely.
This is a personal question.
Okay.
And does cold exposure play any role in treatment, or could it, for depression and anxiety?
I absolutely think it could. I use it not for those specific reasons, but for the health benefits, and also just as a means of, self-induced hardship, which sucks, but I find pleasure in that. So, but absolutely, I think you could. You'd have to monitor it, make sure nobody's hurting themselves, making sure they're not staying in too long. When I think about it in treatment, I'm like, oh, it's a liability. So yeah. I don't know, but I think it absolutely could be and should be used for that. Absolutely. Why not? There's so much with the cold exposure, like Wim Hof breathing. Yep. There's so much therapy with the breathing and the control of the breath. We use it with mindfulness when you can use that before you enter or while you're in the cold plunge. There's just a tremendous amount of benefit from it. So absolutely, I could see that being used.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I noticed when I got it. I got mine in Thanksgiving. And the two things I noticed, nothing was physical. Physically, did I recover a little bit faster, feel better? Yes. But mainly I was able to handle a lot more and a lot more stress. And I felt mentally sharper, and I was actually sleeping way better. I'm still sleeping.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. How often do you do it?
I'd like to say I try to do it every day. I was doing it every day. I need to get back to that. But I try to hit 15 to 20 minutes a week. That's
great. At one time or no, multiple times?
No, multiple times.
Yeah. What's your longest? What's the longest you've been in?
8 minutes.
Ooh. Yep. That is a long time.
How about you?
Yeah, I want to say mine was about a 7, and I was by myself, and I started feeling like I was going to pass out. I was like, this is probably not a good idea to do by yourself, going for long periods of time, because it was a struggle. I really had to pay attention getting up and out of the tub because I was afraid I was just going to pass out and die there. So that was probably too extreme. But I think I liked my happy place is around 4 minutes. I think it's a good amount where it's enough for me, but it's not too much either.
I agree. 4 to 5 is perfect. How often do you do it?
Not enough. Ever since the first of the year, and I started working with this somatic therapist, and we're trying to regulate my central nervous system. She's like, maybe you should like lay off the cold plunge for a little while because we're trying to regulate it, like with your mind, not like self-induced with the cold water. And so I haven't been doing it as much as I was, but I think I'm at a good point with that. So I'd like to start back doing it at least a few times a week.
I love it. Have you done hot to cold?
All the time. So I have an infrared sauna, and so
Okay.
that's my pattern. Is I'll go in there, chill for about a half hour, and just sweat, and then I'll do yoga. So there's a stretching program called Ramwad. It's for CrossFitters, and they have 45-minute workouts, which is perfect because it's perfect for 75 hard. And I'm so short that I can actually do all the deep stretching on the benches in my infrared sauna. So I'll do full-on yoga in my sauna for 45 minutes, and then I go into the cold plunge because I'm like super hot at that point. And then so for me, I love just like that extreme of going from one to the other.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's actually the only time I felt like something bad could happen.
Oh, from going from the extremes?
Yes. I did a 104 jacuzzi
Oh, yep,
for like 20, 30 minutes, and then I hopped in the cold plunge.
yep.
And when my wife saw me get out, she thought I was going to pass out. I was very close.
Oh, thank God she was there. She's like, oh my God, are you okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I have a hot tub too, but you're right. I don't do it from the hot tub. For me, I think that is a little too extreme. At least with the sweating, you're just like sweating from internal to external. But
Yep.
yeah, that I could see that. And I've done the opposite too, where I've been like so cold, I'm like, let me jump into my hot tub and warm up real quick. And it is like fire, like that extreme on your skin. It is
Yep.
nuts.
So, do you see any new patterns emerging? And I'm going to go back to the addiction here. So sorry, but you track with me very well, so we're good. Do you see any new patterns arriving besides, more alcohol and less mixed? So like drugs these days, like you mentioned fentanyl a lot, and I know that's always in the news. But as I understood it, that's something that even a trace amount of it could kill you. People are doing that straight and intentionally.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a big difference is it's so different than when we were growing up because kids can't experiment anymore. They can't just like take a Molly and go to a rave because it could be laced with fentanyl and it would kill them literally one time. So, back in the day, in order to overdose, you had to do tons of it, or most likely IV, or an extreme amount where it was warranted. Now it's just like the tip of a pencil. If you take something, even weed, and it's in there and you get too much, it kills you. And so it sucks. So I think because of those reasons, that's why we're seeing such a spike in alcoholism, because kids are smart, they want to have fun, but they don't want to die. And so I think that's where the alcohol and everything is leaning towards that as a safer solution than messing around with who knows what that's being laced in everything. So it's like, man, I get it. It just sucks for these kids that one time could kill them. That is just something we didn't have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's insane to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then little kids are getting it. And, it's not for junkies. ODing isn't, and it's not even an OD because it's more like a toxicity. It's a reaction to a poisonous drug. And that sucks.
What's some advice that you could give the parents? Right. That between talks,
Yep.
what to monitor,
Yep.
maybe how to step in and correct. Can you kind of break down those three for everybody? Because I think that would be tremendous.
Yeah. I would say first and foremost, don't think your kid is too young to talk to them. I think that's is a big mistake that parents make because they're like, I don't want to introduce this into their world. They're innocent, they're protected, they're not seeing it. But odds are they are seeing and hearing about it either from, they're on YouTube and you don't realize it's flipped to something that they're watching. They're learning from their friends. Their friends are learning from older siblings. Like they are getting information. So they should have the correct information from you. And so, you don't have to like scare tactic them, but they need to understand if somebody offers you something, you say no, because you don't know what's going to be in that. If somebody says, oh, this is super fun, like just, do this because of us, you got to know no, because that one time could be, I don't want to say a death sentence, but it's just scary what kids are confronted with. So first and foremost, I would say education, like so they understand all the different forms. It can come in gummies, it can come in candy, it can look like this, it can look like that. You could think it's a friend, you just don't know. Like the majority of people who come to rehab, they got exposed from like older siblings. Like for myself, I got exposed at a very young age because of my aunt and uncle who weren't that much older than me. So there is exposure that happens. So first and foremost, educate your children so that they understand, so they could have good decisions, and then they could talk to you about it so that you can help them navigate the best way to handle that. That would be the first thing I would do for sure.
When would you suggest? Because I have a 9-year-old and I couldn't even fathom having that conversation, but now hearing you, I'm open.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's good for even just a light conversation, like, hey, I found out kids are being exposed to this. I don't know if you have or haven't. I would say 9 is not too young. If they're going to public school or they're around other kids, there's exposure. There's potential exposure there. Even if they're all good kids and good neighborhoods and nobody would even fathom that, it's there. I mean, shoot, just what they see on like served up on Instagram, or if they're playing around on your iPad, like they're getting the information.
Yeah, and a lot of kids. So that's something that is a misconception, I think.
Yeah.
That this is only something in poor neighborhoods, or this is something in bad neighborhoods.
Yeah, that is a complete falsity. In fact, like even locally, our richest school, it's like a private Christian school. That's where the good drugs are. Like that's they got the good stuff from their family. So it is absolutely in every demographic. In fact, like the more affluent ones have more exposure and more availability than people in the lower income areas.
Yeah. And so walk us through the rest of this. So how could you bring it up, and what should they monitor? And then if they do feel there's something there, how would you approach them?
Yeah, so the first thing, like I always did with my kids, is like just be open and honest with me. I might not like what I'm hearing, but at least I can help you navigate it. Maybe you'll get in trouble, maybe you won't, but open communication first and foremost. And then I think it's just an awareness thing. If somebody's offering you something, if something seems like cool, if someone's presenting you with something, like, thanks but no thanks, come home, let's talk about it, and then we can evaluate together, you and I, parent and child, whether this was like a good thing or not a good thing. So, you don't want them to be so afraid. They're like, oh my God, why are you trying to give me a sandwich? Like, it's just like, okay, well, let's just talk about that as a family. Like, were they eating the sandwich? Was it a safe sandwich? Okay, that was probably totally okay. Good on you for not just going along with it, but let's talk about it. And then you as a parent, like, I think you have an ability, especially understanding the friends and what's going on, to help them see a situation more clearly than them being in it and trying to evaluate what's really going on. Because kids' realities and our realities are two totally different things. And so sometimes they just need to talk it through and have you kind of help them see what they saw.
Yeah, no, 100%. As someone that speaks to his, anytime I have a conversation with my boys, sometimes it doesn't always line up with reality.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, especially with you, they have to navigate a lot of sarcasm and humor to understand the point.
Well, here's the problem, Angie. They give it back to me in spades, and
yes.
they always use everything in perfect context. So I'm in trouble.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's kind of like a proud parent moment. You're like, yes, they were paying attention. I love that.
And then in terms of after the conversation, what should a parent look for or be cognizant of if there's changes of behavior or anything that they can pick up, notice, or monitor so they can preemptively get ahead of it if they feel something's going on?
And that's tough too, because, when you're talking puberty, the emotions are, even without drugs, just so erratic that it can be confusing. I could actually see these as being, I don't know if my kid's on drugs or they're just like, going through puberty, because they're so irrational sometimes. But that's what I would look for is irrationality, flying off the hook for no reason, hiding in their room, being secretive, being suspicious, being like weird if you get around their stuff. Having friends come over that look like a little shady or a little not right, not coming to the family functions late, early, sleeping in, just anything that's like out of characteristic. For me, I was very defensive, but at the same time, I was very good at like deterring. So like someone would ask me something and I would not get defensive because I knew that was a telltale sign, but I was good at like not answering the question or flipping it back or never actually having accountability in these areas. So you just got to look for something that just doesn't seem right or they seem really suspicious about.
Got it. And how would you suggest you approach and prevent at that point? This is like a master class. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, again, I would just say total honesty. Like, you can tell me anything. I am here for you. I've always got your back. The world doesn't always got your back. So I've noticed a change in you. It's sending up some red flags. Let's talk about what's going on. And you really got to have that trust with your child where they can tell you something and you don't overreact and you don't freak out. And you really do become that person where they're like, I know they're not going to like this, but I know I can tell them anything, so I'm going to tell them. And then you navigate that together. So, if you do set yourself up that way, make sure you follow through that way as well so that you don't break the trust of saying, you can trust me, and then turning on them. You just got to be very careful with your trust that you follow through so that you become that person for them all the time. Like I even got to a point where all my kids' friends would come talk to me. Like they were always like, I need to go talk to your mom. And they would just come talk to me because they knew there was no judgment there, but it was also a rational, like, let's look at this together of how we can handle this situation without all the blame and the shame and the guilt and everything that can go along with it.
I love that. I can totally see that, by the way.
Oh, you're good? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
It's true. It annoys the shit out of my daughter sometimes. She's like, God, why, Mom? Why do you got to do that with all my friends? I'm like, I don't know. I love it. But it goes to show you, too, they need somebody that they can talk to and trust who's not going to judge them and penalize them and, all the other things. They need adults that they can trust with that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, everyone needs outlets.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about mission. For you to say, I accomplished what I set out to do in this life, what does that look like?
Oof. I would say for sure legacy. So for me, it's like elevate continues on past me because I feel like I have to fight so hard to keep it here because we've had opportunities to sell, but I know within a year they're going to turn it into every other program, the mill of get them in, get them out, what does insurance pay for? Like for me, I have to protect the legacy. So I have to become big enough that it will forever be like the McDonald's. Like nothing can ever change it because if it's so franchised, it's so great, and it's so successful that nothing can or will ever change what the purpose and mission of Elevate is. So I feel like I've got a long ways to go there to really cement that, but definitely, on my way to doing that.
I love that. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to expand to other states?
Absolutely. I would love to. I know Florida's a popular place. They had a ton of rehabs out there. It's known for its shadiness, but that means there's also a lot of buildings out there that could be converted into programs. One thing that we really pride ourselves in is destination locations. So, one of my centers is in South Lake Tahoe Forest. The other one is overlooking the Monterey Bay. So I definitely am drawn towards aesthetically pleasing places, and I don't mean like Ritz-Carlton, like the amenities are so great, but the locations are perfect for healing. So I would love to go out into other places that are conducive to healing and known for that, and put rehabs there for sure. I want to bring in animals. I definitely want to incorporate animal therapy, equine therapy. Like I'd love to have like a big ranch place and involve all that as well.
Well, just so you know, I'm sure Logan didn't tell you, but where we are, you could go from beach to farm real quick.
Oh, yeah. I love Florida. Florida calls to my heart. Florida and Texas, I feel like it's going to be one of those two places, or Hawaii. For sure, it's going to be one of those three places.
Well, if you do choose Florida and you need a partner, you let me know. This is something
Absolutely.
I would be interested in this because I think you're doing such a good thing for the world.
Oh, I
And,
appreciate that. I love that.
it's
And I may take you up on that. Like Jonathan, guess what? There's a place right down the road.
let's do it.
Yeah, I love that.
couple, I have a couple other questions, a little bit difficult, but yeah, crush the mission one.
Okay.
What do you think some of the biggest mistakes you've made as an operator?
It's interesting because all these mistakes, you learn from and you never do them again. So although they were mistakes at the time, they ended up being blessings in hindsight. I would say I took my eye off of my finances. So like a couple of years ago, I got pretty big in this entrepreneur world. I was traveling around a lot. I'm like, my guys back home got this. And they did. And then I was banking on this ERC money. Oh, that's 1.8 million in the bank because, we held on to all of our employees through the pandemic. This is great. Although things are getting scary right now, I know they're going to be better. And I spent money I didn't have, and I took my eye off the bottom line. And so we ended up in a financial situation, as you know now, that's taken me a while to dig out of because of my it's just total irresponsibility. Like when I look at it as it is, I was trusting people to do what they should do, and that wasn't necessarily happening. And so, now I'm back in, fully immersed, involved, 100%. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it has to be done. So if it's your business, you have to keep your eye on the bottom line. You can't assume that other people are doing that for you.
I love that. And I think that, one, I commend you for going there because a lot of people need to listen to that because there's more people have that mistake, that exact mistake, than anything else
Yeah.
I've ever seen.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And
And it can happen fast. The bigger you are, the faster it happens. I mean, a few bad weeks for me, and it's like I'm digging out of that hole for the next year. Yeah.
Yep. Well, hey, I did the same thing. I took a very, very, very large hit on a couple of investments that I should have never done, and actually pulled me away from what I'm great at and what I thoroughly enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And nobody could have told you that beforehand. It's almost like you have to learn the hard way yourself. Like you can learn from others' mistakes and you can hear all this great stuff from, Andy and Ed and, all these people. But until you go through it, you're like, oh, I get it now. Fuck. That was a painful fucking mistake. I am not making that one again.
expensive tuition payments.
Oh my God, the worst. Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, this one for me, it is as painful as it could possibly get, but we'll pull out of it because we always do. And for me, that is the cool thing is because I've been doing this so long that because people are like, well, how do you keep doing it? How do you stay with this? How do you keep going? And it's like, because I know in my heart, I'm going to get out of it because I've gotten I've gotten through so many crazy, unpredictable, like the 2008 crash, still here. I remember, and I know how to navigate us through this. It's not the end of the world and the pandemic and this and that. Like I've done it long enough that I know that I just got to keep doing it. And that's how you get to the other side. You just don't give up. Or I don't give up.
That is probably one of the best clips I've ever had on Spotlight.
Yes. Awesome.
It's so true. People don't get it. Just survive.
Just survive, man.
You can survive. And then eventually when things turn, that's when you thrive.
Yeah. Yeah, if I were to jump ship every time things went bad, this ship wouldn't be here. And I'm so grateful. I used to always be upset with myself because people would say, what's your plan B? And I'm like, what plan B? Do people think about plan Bs?
Yeah.
Oh yes, plan B, plan C. And I'm like, dude, I feel like I would be betraying myself by even entertaining another B or C. I have to be all in for this thing to work. I can't be having backup plans. And that's what's gotten me through.
Burn the boats.
Burn the boats. Maybe it's not the smartest trajectory, but it's why we're still here because there was no plan B that was better than what I'm doing now.
I love it. By the way, that is an incredible book.
Which one?
Burn the Boats.
Oh, I haven't even read that one yet.
Put that on the 75 hard reading list.
Okay. Who is that by?
I want to say Matt, but I will actually take a picture of it and text
Yes.
you as soon as I get home.
Awesome. Oh, I love those kind of books. Those speak to my heart for sure.
And I know that's why I mentioned it. You will love it.
Awesome.
Is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with?
Well, I would say first and foremost, if you think someone is struggling, I would approach them and try to help them. So many people stay, especially when they're deep in addictions, very closed off. And if you haven't seen a person in a while and you're wondering if they're okay, check on them. And then don't be afraid of, quote unquote, hurting your relationship if you're saving their life. Like at the end of the day, no addict wants to get help unless they're like pushed into it. And so they may lash out at you for even suggesting it, but trust your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. And don't be convinced by their words. Look at their actions and be willing to put your friendship or relationship on the line in order to help that person, because that's what they need. And so I think so many people are afraid of hurting feelings or, disrupting things. And so they don't go in for the hard sell of trying to help somebody when that somebody really needs somebody to do that for them.
I love that. And what is the best place someone can find you or reach out, or if they want to work with you? How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah,
List
so
them all.
the website is elevaterehab.org. There's 24/7 help there, either chat or call. You can reach me. I am also very responsive on Angie Going Rogue, I think on Instagram, Angie Manson on Facebook. But any of those avenues, I can get you the help that you need. And the thing is that it might not even be with us, and we get that a lot. Some people, we're not a good fit for them. They're looking for something else, but we will help you get to where you need help. Like, it's our business to help, either with us or with someone else, but we will get you the help that you need if you just reach out, or even if you just don't know if you need help. I've had several people reach out, like, I have an employee or I have someone, what do you think? And even if you just want to talk about it, here for that as well.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Seriously. Thank you so much. Guys,
Absolutely.
please follow Angie. She's the best at what she does by a wide margin. I know her a little bit better than most other guests here, and she's a rock star. Thank you, Angie.
Yeah, thank you for having me. You're the best. And thank